Welcome everyone to Wrasslin Raw!
You're listening to Wrasslin Raw, the podcast that takes you back to when the World Wrestling Federation developed a little bit of an attitude. Thank you for joining us. You're here with Ryan Arico.
That disgusting smell is probably coming from Betsy.
Joe Giammatteo.
What does sex have to do with the WWF Championship?
I'm the one and only Jason Bartlett. We're going to examine WWE history, one episode of Raw at a time. In this episode of Wrasslin Raw, we're going to be talking about the Raw that aired on July 15th, 1996. This Raw was recorded at the Brown County Expo in Green Bay, Wisconsin, and features Vince McMahon and Jerry the King Lawler on commentary. Are you guys ready?
I'm ready.
Ready.
All right, then let's get into it. Earlier tonight, there was a welcoming committee for Shawn Michaels and Ahmed Johnson. And I heard the sound of a bunch of girls screaming like it was a Beatles concert, but all I saw was Gorilla Monsoon and a ref I didn't recognize. But Camp Cornette was there also to greet Shawn Michaels and Ahmed Johnson, and miraculously, there was a bevy of officials on hand and ready to perform the pull-apart. Damn miracle that they were there and not doing anything useful. Welcome everyone to Monday Night Raw. Sunny is prancing around in the ring with one of the tag team belts. The camera focuses on her even though she is not the wrestler that's about to work this match. And Vince and the King tee up our first match of the night. Ahmed Johnson defeats Bart Gunn with Sunny by pinfall in 11 minutes and 28 seconds to retain the WWF Intercontinental Championship. That rolling good old boy down-home country twang music was never good before, but now that the Guns are trying to be heels, it's even more wrong. Ahmed's music, on the other hand, remains on point. Once the match gets started, the tie-up to the corner looked good to kick things off. I like that slow fighting walk to the corner that they do in exaggerated steps across the ring. Something about that just really looks good to me. Ahmed hit a decent arm drag takedown, but was pretty slow to get up from it. But then, when Ahmed and Bart shook hands after the takedown, I realized that it was because we're all friends and there's no rush here. At the start, we went through another sequence of Bart attempting a hip toss, with Ahmed reversing into a toss of his own, with Bart shaking his head at being outclassed. While I didn't like it, I have to give Bart credit here because he was making those tosses look great, giving Ahmed a lot of altitude when Bart would leap to do the mid-air rotation. Finally, Bart remembers that he's a heel, and we get to some interesting wrestling. I've said it before, and I'll say it again, Bart Gunn is a really underrated wrestler, at least from what I've seen since the Guns came to the WWF a couple years ago now. We got a split screen of Shawn Michaels watching this match with bated breath, apparently nervous about his upcoming match with Billy Gunn later in the night. Back in the ring, Bart Gunn has been working Ahmed's left arm relentlessly. What the hell was that hold that Bart put on Ahmed's arm? Bart used his feet and ankles to tie Ahmed's elbow behind Ahmed's back somehow. We really didn't get a good view of how that was tied up because Bart was with his back to the hard camera and we couldn't get a solid view on just the way that their limbs were tied, but
It's called a maneuver.
That's the technical term, yeah.
Ah, you're right. I should have looked that up before coming on. Ahmed pounding Bart in the corner looked great. And I loved the referee counting Bart while Bart was holding an armbar on Ahmed. Bart got lazy and let his own shoulders drop, and the ref was on top of it. That's good shit, pal. Ahmed's power slam of Bart looked good. And so did Ahmed, remembering that he's got an injured arm. I was very glad to see that, and he maintained that throughout the story he was telling here. After a commercial break, we come back to Bart still in control, Jerry Lawler backstage for some reason, and me kind of getting annoyed with how loud and constant Sonny's screaming was. But then we get a spot where Ahmed reverses an attempted tackle by catching Bart, carrying Bart over to crotch Bart on the top rope, and Ahmed then gets a running start to shoulder block Bart off of the top rope and to the outside. Ahmed going over with him. This spot made me say, "What the fuck was that?" out loud.
And then Ahmed Johnson exploding on Bart Gunn.
Vince doesn't know whether or not Ahmed knew what he was doing during that. Ahmed started losing it a little bit here, though. His whip to the ropes of Bart didn't have much oomph behind it, even though Bart carried himself across the ring like he had been whipped hard. And the spine buster, to complete the sequence, looked like Bart didn't get all the way to the flat of his back before hitting the mat.
And you know what happens after the spine buster?
Going into the Pearl River plunge, we can see that Ahmed was blown up. He was sucking wind hard, but Ahmed sold the shit out of the Pearl River plunge, giving great facial expressions and head gestures for the impact and during the pin count. And that's it. Victory for Ahmed. And that Intercontinental title has slipped through Sonny's greedy little fingers. Guys, this match was a decent start to Raw, had decent work from both competitors, and Vince McMahon was pretty enthusiastic on commentary for most of it. All in all, a nice way to get us going tonight. Joe, what did you think, please?
Well, I'll give you my thoughts, but can we all agree that Camp Cornette has absolutely no business being there tonight? The crowd is pretty dead at the beginning of this match, and they were pretty dead during almost the entire thing until the very end. And I gotta say, I was kind of bored with this match too, for the most part. I mean, it had bits and pieces that were okay. Bartlett, I agree with you that Pearl River Plunge really had some authority on it. You know, like I said, the crowd really came alive for it, so that was exciting. Sunny was a little distracting. I mean, they were putting a lot of focus on her. She was being very vocal during this whole match. And I just thought it was funny that, you know, Sunny is kind of known for being a total bitch in real life, but she's not really a good wrestling heel. She's still more of a baby face, in my opinion. So this just didn't really do much for me. I think that Bart Gunn's a decent wrestler, but I think Ahmed is still just a little green and doesn't really have great selling abilities.
It started out, I was laughing because we've seen this before, but again, I don't even think Bart Gunn got to touch the belt. It was completely shown off and handled by Sunny. I mean, it's her belt. That's sad for Bart, but I thought it looked okay at the beginning. We had a lot of Bart putting Ahmed over, showing off Ahmed's strength and power, and I thought Bart did a good job with that. Unfortunately, he started on an arm bar, and it pretty much didn't end for the next 10 minutes. I mean, yeah, he switched it up with the way he was manipulating his arm. Sometimes it was using the ropes, sometimes with that fancy behind-the-leg maneuver, but it was all a variation of an arm bar for the most part. I've said it before with Bulldog matches and some of the Diesel matches. Maybe I'm not a quote-unquote true wrestling fan because I don't like to watch people be in arm manipulation moves for 20 minutes at a time, but I enjoy a little bit more action. The split screen was fine because it was so short. We went to Shawn Michaels, but we're still trying to play up that they're part of this team. But I did think it was funny because the whole point of this little split screen was to try and include the word Sid. Try and make it seem like Sid is still part of this, even though, since this is taped, there was no thought that Sid was even in the picture when any of this was taped. So I thought they were doing a pretty good job with, I guess, tricking the audience into thinking some of this is happening live or real time when it really is almost a month ago at this point. Ahmed briefly takes over and he does that crotching over the top rope that I thought was pretty funny because Vince tries his best to cover for him, saying, well, if it was intentional, the ref would have to disqualify him. I think he must have lost his balance. It was like, it's so clear that it was an intentional move. After they show the replay and it's quite clear at that point it's intentional, Vince follows it up with, or maybe he did. Johnson was blown up at the end for sure. The spine buster, he looked tired, but the Pearl River plunge looked good. And again, Bart did a really good job of putting the move over for Ahmed. So I didn't think this was a terrible match. I thought there were some good segments to it. It just was way too much slow movement in the middle part of this match for me.
Yeah, I don't have too much to add to that. I mean, I see where you guys are coming from with that, but I don't know. I just didn't get it from there. I think I was too excited to see Bart Gunn wrestle solo again. I've really become a Bart Gunn fan.
Can't wait for the hell's the boxing tournament called?
Oh yeah, the Brawl for All.
Yeah, there you go. Brawl for All.
He's really gonna go over there.
Plus this big push after that victory, right?
Yeah. Well, let's not forget also the new Midnight Express with Bob Holly.
Jeez.
Or no, the Rock and Roll Express. Excuse me. Was that the Midnight or the Rock and Roll? It doesn't really matter.
It doesn't matter.
Let's go backstage with Shawn Michaels after Ahmed's win to talk about the upcoming 6-man tag match at the International Incident pay-per-view. Shawn starts off by saying that getting spread thin is a responsibility that the WWF champion has to take on, and I'll be damned if that wasn't a prophetic statement coming from Shawn fucking Michaels, of all people. He got spread a little thin. Shawn does start to lose me, though, when he suggests that there's some secret relationship that exists between him and Sid that nobody knows about and will eventually be talked about at some undefined point in the future. I was gagging a little bit because that was getting a little too close to friendship. Good old friendship. I thought we were past that.
Well, he is who released him from the gates of hell.
Twice. And gave him the keys to a Cadillac, apparently.
If that isn't friendship, what is?
Well, despite all of this, though, this was a solid promo out of Shawn Michaels. Joe, what did you think of it?
I honestly just thought it was a bunch of gibberish. I didn't understand any of it. Once he started talking about International Incident, he lost me.
I thought the promo was fine enough. Nothing fantastic, nothing terrible. But has he wore this outfit before?
It was loud. It was making a lot of noise, clanging around.
Well, not just that. I mean, this is an iconic outfit of his.
Yeah.
This red vest made out of these like individual solid squares that are attached kind of like chainmail.
Yeah.
I mean, it's something he's going to become known for, but I think it is maybe the first time we saw him in it.
Could be, yeah.
That was kind of interesting.
Well, something that's not interesting. Sable's music starts playing, so that means it's time for our next match. The Wild Man, Marc Mero, with Sable, defeats T.L. Hopper by pinfall in 11 minutes and 30 seconds.
Here they come! Here comes Sable!
Thanks, Vince. Oh yeah, there's a wrestling match about to happen here. But also here comes a movie usher.
It's the lackey.
The lackey. The luckiest man in wrestling right now because he's the only lackey that hasn't been blasted by Ahmed Johnson so far, I think. Well, the movie usher is carrying a present from Gold Dust for Sable, which Sable drops to the floor in disgust. The mild man brings Sable into the ring to display his meal ticket for the fans, and we break for commercial just in time to miss the posing. Fans call into the Superstars line, spend $1.49 a minute on option 6 to hear how an unidentified source has revealed Camp Cornette's plans to destroy Shawn Michaels' confidence at the International Incident pay-per-view. There's no mention of the other two people on Shawn's team who presumably will have no problems with their confidence. Shawn might, though. Back in the ring, we get our first view of the wrestling plumber, T.L. Hopper. And damned if I didn't call it. We get a brief video vignette of T.L. Hopper doing some plumbing work with his ass crack hanging out. This past weekend on Superstars, T.L. Hopper had both beaten Duke the Dumpster Droese and then plunged Duke with the plunger, whose name happens to be Betsy. When the match gets going, the mild man hits his routine at the start, and it's getting so predictable you can set your watch to it. Rope work, shoulder, rope work, takedown, ×3, and then out of the ring. It's beginning to feel like if you've seen one mild man match, you've seen them all, or at least in the first 10 minutes of it, 5 minutes of it. There's a camera back in the Camp Cornette locker room, which is apparently invisible, as Camp Cornette doesn't react to its presence at all. There are supposedly audio issues. It should be assumed already, but just to be clear, there have been plenty of plumber toilet jokes from Jerry Lawler. T.L. Hopper is a very congenial fellow, though. He's very vocal and talkative, almost too much so. We have Stone Cold Steve Austin backstage on split screen, so we're going to show Austin and then go to commercial without talking to Austin. Eventually, though, we do get to talk to Steve after the audio problems have been cleaned up, and Vince reminds us that Austin is going to be facing the Mild Man at the International Incident pay-per-view this coming Sunday. Unfortunately, this was a subpar visit with Austin for a couple reasons. Vince was interrupting him to loudly give a 2 count, for example. The Mild Man starts his hissy fit, or rally, or whatever you want to call it. It looks a hell of a lot like a hissy fit to me whenever he does it. Like a little tantrum. Big fucking baby. And we get to see one of the few things that Mero does well, and that's throwing punches. After we get the pin and the 3 count, Mero continues to be as boring as he was throughout the rest of the match. And that's the most I can really say about this match. Mero is boring to watch. TL Hopper is both a lame gimmick and just lame in the way that he works in the ring. And I felt like I'd been robbed of 11 minutes and 30 seconds of my life. Ryan, what did you think of this match?
We start off getting to see this joke of a gimmick, TL Hopper, come down, and we get the quick video very reminiscent of the dumpster in his first vignettes that we saw him, showing off his working man gimmick that he's got going on here. And I loved that they showed the job of Duke the Dumpster to TL Hopper, including his face getting plunged. It was almost like a passing of the torch, because this is kind of the exact same gimmick. It's like TL Hopper is replacing Duke. It's kind of like Doink the Clown, except without the makeup.
Yeah.
They're just passing it over to another bum to go out there and get the shit kicked out of him, because he doesn't even win the first time that we see him. He gets defeated by the Mild Man, and I'm doing a lot of likening him to Duke, but I will say he is a slightly better wrestler than Duke. He's not great by any means, but he's making Mark look better than Duke would have. I'll just put it that way. Then we go to Stone Cold and his promo, which it was kind of broken up with them trying to keep focus on the match, but I did enjoy Stone Cold when Vince briefly tries to say something about Marc Mero. He barks, "Shut up!" Just screams it at him and then continues his rant. So I did like that. And right after that, the King starts making fun of Vince for flushing his toupee down a toilet and needing a plumber or something like that. I don't know if either of you two heard this, because it was kind of quiet in the background. It was right around this time. Do you guys remember the classic Simpsons episode, Homer at the Bat?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. In that episode, Bart Simpson is in the crowd, and he's slowly chanting, "Daryl," in a mocking way towards Daryl Strawberry.
Yeah.
I'm not 100%.
Sable.
I heard Mero. I thought they were slowly chanting Mero, Mero in the Daryl way, which that episode was like 92. So at this point, there would have been enough fans that would have caught on. And I don't know if they were for sure, but I really hope so. I really hope they were mocking the Mild Man by chanting his name. And speaking of, he mildly takes over the end of this match and wins with a left hook. I mean, TL Hopper is defeated by a left hook. All right, I guess if you're going to bring a guy in to immediately job out, you might as well beat him with a simple move like a left hook.
Yeah, you were really hoping that they were mocking the Mild Man while he's in there with a wrestling plumber.
Yes.
That goes to show our thoughts on the Mild Man here. There's no telling where that plunger has been, guys. It's disgusting.
No telling.
Betsy. Really bad timing for a guy like this to come in, because like you mentioned, we just got rid of Duke, the dumpster. We don't have the Doink the Clown anymore. We haven't seen the evil dentist in a long time, but now we're getting a plumber, a wrestling plumber. And yeah, the plumber jokes and puns are just endless and not funny at all. So yeah, there's really nothing to like about this. And then the fact that he was in there with the Mild Man. Like you said, Ryan, how could you get more mild than a left hook to end the match? I mean, he does throw a nice punch.
Oh, he does. He does.
And we'll see that later once he drops this Mild Man gimmick, which can't happen soon enough. But yeah, this just wasn't good. I mean, the crowd was totally dead. It was 11 minutes, you said? I mean, that's long for a gimmick wrestler. I mean, that's long. So yeah, things aren't looking good here.
Yeah, I'll just add here that I probably wouldn't mind getting a kiss from Betsy because Betsy looked very clean. As much as they said we don't know where it's been, yeah, I'm pretty sure it's only ever been on the shelf. So,
Well, Duke's mouth.
yeah, that's true.
It's probably no worse than whatever was in that slop bucket that Sonny got a couple weeks ago.
Ew. What's funny about this, though, is you guys are saying that, we just got rid of Duke and now we have a plumber, which I agree with you. Those are great points that you threw out there. But at some point, somebody said that same thing to Vince and he said, "Oh, you want serious? Well, then I guess we should probably have a Roman gladiator then."
It's funny, too, because the NWO just formed like last week and Vince introduces a wrestling plumber.
Well, speaking of somebody that has been accused of being behind the times, let's go backstage with Camp Cornette. There's a lot of 90s fashion going on here. Cornette cuts a decent enough promo pointing out the history between the three camp counselors and Shawn Michaels. This whole time, Vader is cheesing it up nicely, as well as the Bulldog and Owen. But now, let's take a look at The Undertaker. Ugh, man, this was good. This is a music video format type video, complete with the title The Undertaker, in quotes, artist Jim Johnston, provided by Coliseum Home Video. And The Undertaker gives us a fantastic voiceover here, really building up the character and the mythos, with scenes from so many different awesome examples of moments from Taker's career. The one thing that was a little discordant was the brief pauses to highlight Mankind squealing, with snippets of either Mankind or Goldust beating on The Undertaker. I get why they did that. It was a symbol of the way that they've been interrupting The Undertaker's career and legend and trying to pull him down. I just didn't care for the way it was pulled off. But otherwise, this was a pretty awesome video package that did a great job of highlighting the overall vibe of The Undertaker. Before we move along, Ryan, what did you think of Camp Cornette's promo? And after that video package, are you still an asshole for The Undertaker?
Cornette's promo, pretty standard Cornette promo, solid, nothing to really talk about, but solid. The Undertaker music video, yeah, I enjoyed it. I mean, it was a little bit odd, just to have a music video for The Undertaker, but the music that they picked and the way that it was produced and the clips that they were using, I thought it was kind of entertaining and served the purpose. It was highlighting, like you said, his career and then kind of showing his current feud between Goldust and Mankind. I also loved that it ended with Paul Bearer shining that giant flashlight urn. I'm glad every time we get to see that ridiculous, that ridiculous urn, because it was just so enormous. It was like 5 times the size of a normal urn. So yes, still an asshole for The Undertaker. This was a bit of a filler piece for sure, but even so, I enjoyed it.
Yeah, the Cornette interview with Camp Cornette there. It's funny, Bartlett, you mentioned that the wardrobe was very 90s looking. I think that's what you said, right?
Yeah.
Because I have a note here that says the promo itself just made me think that it was very 80s looking. Not necessarily their clothes, but just the way they were acting.
Yeah.
I don't know. The three guys just kind of looked awkward, like they didn't know what to do while Jim was talking. Owen's just like stroking his arm cast. Vader's just doing this weird fucking growling. So I don't know. They just looked awkward to me, but it got the point across, I guess. The Undertaker video, Jim Johnston, my boy, getting credit here. I love seeing that because the song was great. This is not some bullshit love song to Shawn Michaels or this terrible country-sounding Bret Hart tribute. Jim Johnston probably said, "Do not put my name on this," but please give me credit for this one because this was good stuff. It was just instrumental, no cheesy lyrics. Could you imagine?
He's gonna bury you alive.
It just reminds people of who The Undertaker is. Even though he just lost to this deranged individual, he is still a force in the WWF, and it was nice. I liked it.
He's gonna suck you straight to hell. Right down through the floor. Yeah, completely agreed. The Jim Johnston video was almost like a extended cut remix or something of the Undertaker theme song. It started out with Taker's entrance music, but then kind of, I don't know, went a little further with some extra instrumentation. Good stuff.
You know, one thing I wanted to bring up, since you guys were talking about the Cornette promo and how it looked 90s and Joe, you were saying it sounded 80s. It's interesting because at the very beginning of this episode, when you had Camp Cornette kind of confronting Ahmed and Michaels at the front gate, that felt very Attitude Era, very new and fresh.
Yeah.
So to kind of go back to this old style promo in the same episode is a little bit odd.
Yeah, it's so weird. It's like they don't know what they're doing with themselves. And it's almost like you can see the different creative visions, like kind of contrasting with each other.
And the growing pains, kind of.
Yeah. All right, gentlemen, let's go now into our final match of the night. Shawn Michaels with Jose Lothario defeats Billy Gunn with Sonny by pinfall in 14 minutes to retain the WWF Championship. It was hilarious that as soon as Shawn Michaels would high-five a fan, the fan would then retract their hand so that Jose Lothario was repeatedly high-fiving empty air on the way down the entryway. Just something about that seemed right to me. Let's take a quick look at Shawn Michaels signing autographs at a tennis tournament to raise either money, awareness, or both for juvenile diabetes. Looked like everyone was having a good time there. And then the news that condolences should go out to the Hart family, because the 13-year-old nephew of Bret Hart passed away after a viral disease.
Depressing news to start off this match.
Yeah. Not just depressing news, but how often do you, whenever you say, hey, what happened to so-and-so? Oh, well, they died of a viral disease. What a weird phrase.
13.
Weird way to put it.
13 years old, is that what they said? Or
yeah,
14?
13.
Yeah.
I do not know which of the Hart family was the child's parent.
Meltzer said it was one of his sisters, one of Bret and Owen's sisters. I don't think it's any of the brothers who were in wrestling.
Okay. Well, this match was immediately weird. Billy Gunn acting very DX with Shawn Michaels, mocking Shawn with hip gyrations. And it also stood out to me that this match was following the same starting format as Ahmed's match against Bart. Quick hits followed by killing time while the competitors sell those hits, the current champions taking some time to get their opponents over as actual threats. We get a split screen with Ahmed Johnson, and Ahmed doesn't do too bad of a job with it. But then we get a really awkward spot where Sonny is distracting Shawn. Sonny is standing up on the apron and jabbing Shawn in the chest with her finger. Shawn just grabs her by the head and lays in not one, but two big smooches. And all I can think is that Candido proposed to Sonny.
I was wondering, maybe after this match, Shawn and Sonny are going to go out and celebrate the engagement.
God, so sad. So fucking sad. The action gets going again, and Billy Gunn was looking good in this, keeping up with Shawn. And here I had to quote Vince McMahon,
Sex? What does sex have to do with the WWF Championship?
Joe, you did a much better job of it than I. As we break to commercial, Vince informed us that Jim Cornette would be taking on Jose Lothario during the free-for-all. What the fuck? I don't even know where the hell that came from, but it also says something about the kind of content we put on the free-for-all. Tag championships and Cornette versus Lothario. In sidescreen, we see Camp Cornette leaving. Apparently, they're not sticking around. Vader roars at the camera for us real quick. That was a nice little improvisational spot there. We get a decent flying elbow from Michaels, and Vince asks,
Do you feel it coming on?
That signals the sweet chin music, which lands, gets the pin, and the 3 counts. There is more left in our episode, but we need to take a pause so I can ask, Joe, what did you think about our final match here?
I really had high expectations, high hopes for this match with Billy Gunn and Shawn Michaels, but I just didn't really think it was that great. I thought it was kind of boring for most of it. And again, we have this distraction with Sonny. We have all the shenanigans with Sonny and Shawn. I think that they should have put these two together. Instead of Jose Lothario, they should have had Sonny with Shawn.
Oh my God.
I know it's terrible, but if they're going to exploit Jake Roberts' drinking problem, why not just do it with relationships too, you know? I think it would have been a good pairing, you know, not knowing that Chris and Sonny are a real couple. I just think Shawn and Sonny would have been a good pairing. I mean, we know that doesn't happen.
Well, it doesn't happen on television.
Yeah. Do you remember there's an episode where it was Shawn's birthday and there's a birthday cake involved and
yes.
Yeah.
Sonny gets it and then Shawn kisses her and stuff. I thought this was going to be it, but it's not. I'm not sure when that's going to happen, but I imagine it's going to be coming up here pretty soon.
So my Raw, you know, just automatically went into the next one.
Uh-huh.
It's the next one.
Okay. So we get this interaction between Sonny and Shawn for 2 weeks in a row, which is kind of funny. But yeah, I mean, I hate to not talk about the match very much, but I just don't have much to say about it because I just wasn't really that impressed with it. And man, is Vince McMahon calling Sweet Chin Music so annoying. Like, I want JR.
Here it comes!
Yeah, I want JR so bad. I'm so sick of Vince just obnoxiously screaming for Sweet Chin Music.
It's hilarious because every time I see Jose Lothario come down to the ring with Shawn Michaels, I think of you, Joe, and I laugh. And it's like this match was specially tailored to piss you off because immediately after seeing Jose, King immediately goes in after staying quiet all night into a series of Jake the Snake drunk jokes.
He has nothing to do with this match at all.
Nothing to do at all. Like, he's not wrestling someone who's going to be wrestling him.
Right.
It was just, hey, Joe, here's Jose Lothario. Let me bring up some drunk jokes for you. And then after the Shawn Michaels kissing thing with Sonny, I didn't think it was nearly as bad as you, Joe, after it started off. I thought Shawn and Billy did a decent job of doing a little back and forth, but I do agree this is nowhere close to where I thought it was going to be. Because both of these guys, we know Shawn Michaels is a great wrestler and could put on a show with some of the worst out there. And Billy Gunn, you know, same thing. Most of the time when we see him in the ring, he's doing a pretty good job, though we haven't seen him a ton as a singles guy yet. You know, this is kind of the beginning of that, and it reminded me a little bit of, I think it's JR that I've heard say this before, in why maybe this match isn't as good as it could have been. I guess Billy Gunn has asthma, and because of that, it's always made it difficult for him to be a singles guy because he physically can't do it. He has to have that little break that he's able to take as a tag team partner where he can tag off, let his asthma kind of calm down, and then he can get back in the ring and go again. But especially if you're going to put him in a headlining match, it needs to be lengthy, and if a guy just can't physically do it, it's going to be tough to make him look great in the ring without a lot of stalling spots. So, you know, I didn't think this match was maybe as bad as you, Joe, but definitely nowhere close to where I was hoping it was going to be.
Yeah, it almost exposes his struggles as a singles guy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
They talk about, it's probably both actually, Bruce Pritchard and JR on their podcast, how they all thought very highly of Billy Gunn and wanted to make him like a singles star.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, this almost kind of gives you early exposure that, well, maybe he's not really cut out for it. Maybe he is better because he is exciting as a tag team wrestler.
He is, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, he was already at a disadvantage, though. I mean, coming down with Sonny in that low-cut little cowgirl get-up.
Yeah, right.
He's already breathing
help.
hard, so.
That doesn't help, and it's funny because they're doing that because they think that the Guns need that help, but it's not really helping. It's actually just distracting.
Yeah.
If anything, continuing to help not get them over as heels.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Something that this episode of Raw really made me notice with, you know, the two Guns being in singles action. Bart is a hell of a solid worker from all of the singles matches we've seen him in. That's my personal opinion, of course, but Bart is a solid fucking worker, and Billy isn't quite as solid, strictly because of the whole, you know, health issue thing, so that's not a negative reflection on him necessarily, but Billy has the charisma, and It's just, it stands out in this episode because you have two clear examples of the worker and the charismatic one, and you can really see with this episode how much better they are when they're together, or at least how much worse they are apart, maybe.
And a very good example of a way to take two people who are good wrestlers but both have a weakness and put them together and let them play off each other's weakness to make a good tag team.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, gentlemen, to wrap things up, we're going to go to a segment that was obviously put together and not at all live, like Vince McMahon would like us to believe. Ahmed is backstage waiting behind the curtain for Shawn Michaels to come back so Ahmed can congratulate Shawn. Shawn emerges from the curtain, which is entirely black behind it and dark on the other side, not like there's a live arena or anything out there. And I might have missed it, but from what I saw, Shawn wasn't carrying the belt, or carrying Jose Lothario with him, for that matter. Out of nowhere, Jim Cornette comes in, tosses a cup of water in Shawn Michaels' face, causing Shawn and Ahmed to chase after Cornette, and I'll be goddamned if I will ever believe that 1996 Jim Cornette could outrun either of these guys. There were officials on hand to follow them, thank God, and Vince yells, "It's an ambush!" before we can even see where they've gone or what's happening. I mean, there was a ton of girth, of beef in the doorways here. We couldn't see past them to see what was actually happening, but Vince knew, and he let us know that it was an ambush. And I have to admit that at this point, I was pretty down on what was going on. I thought this was stupid as hell until Psycho Sid came screeching in a Cadillac, crashing into a pile of garbage.
Duke was in it.
That was laying there next to the pillar. Sid is the difference maker here as Camp Cornette piles into an awaiting car and takes off. And yes, the only way that this could have been better is if Duke would have went sailing out of there. And that's it. We've faded to black. Joe, please, what did you think about the way that our go-home episode of Raw ended?
Well, I'm pretty much on par with you on my thoughts on this. But first, when it happened, when Cornette threw the drink, I was wondering, was that supposed to be like hot coffee or just water or what? It was a brown liquid, whatever it was.
Oh.
But it could have been coffee because Michaels had no reaction to it whatsoever other than running after him. It wasn't really that great. Now, they did have to splice this into this episode because of the whole Warrior situation.
Right.
But I think it worked out because of the end. When Sid comes crashing in, I out loud said, "Holy shit." And he gets out of the car and starts chasing after him. I was like, hell yeah, this is a great way to end the show. I loved it.
Yeah, again, I think we're all three on the same page here. The setup for the trap was a little bit ham-fisted, that's for sure. Like, it looked almost like a cartoon. Like, what moron wouldn't know this was a trap? I was almost waiting for them to, when they started to chase after him, for their feet to, like, slip on the floor for a few seconds before they get moving. But, I mean, they run out into this clear trap. You have Team Cornette there, but Sid does save it. Sid comes in here like the psycho he is, crashing his Cadillac into Duke, saving the day. The only complaint I would have is it almost happened too quick. We didn't really get to see anything happen.
Yeah.
They run out there, Sid comes racing in, and immediately Team Cornette piles into the car and takes off. So for the go-home show ending, I would have liked for Sid to at least got his hands on someone or something. But, this is what you have to do and when you have to work with what you're given here. And it does make me wonder what was the original ending that happened with the Ultimate Warrior instead of Sid. How was it different? We're never going to know, but I think that would have been interesting to see.
I can tell you what it is right now. Shawn Michaels and Ahmed Johnson were getting their asses kicked, and the Warrior took his sweet-ass time getting there to rescue them. Well, as I said, that was the end of our episode, so we're going to take it on over now to highlights and lowlights. Ryan, please, why don't you go first?
Highlights for this one were a little bit tough because the matches were not all that strong, to be honest with you, in my opinion. But if I did have to pick a match, I think I'd have to go with the Ahmed Johnson Bart Gunn. Even though I got bored in the middle of it and I don't think it was a great match, I think it maybe was the best that we had tonight, and it's sadly not saying much, especially after last week. My low light, I'm going to have to go with TL Hopper, the Mildman match. I mean, I don't think that's a shock. Out of a episode of low lights, that was a real low light. That's definitely the winner tonight.
Yeah, for my low light. I mean, there's a wrestling plumber on my TV screen. That has to be my low light.
And fart noises.
Yes. And my highlight is going to be 2 weeks in a row, Sid. Sid crashing his car into Duke the Dumpster. Yeah, Sid crashing that car in, making that type of an entrance into the ambush is my highlight.
Yeah, Joe, I'm going to be mirroring you here. Low light. The Mildman Marc Mero and TL Hopper both. Just what a lame, fucking boring match that was. Highlight, Psycho Sid crashing into the garbage pile, aka Duke the Dumpster, with that Cadillac. He really laid that in, too. Like, he waited to the last fucking second to hit the brakes on that.
Yeah.
Like I said earlier, the only thing that would have made that better is if we had seen Duke the Dumpster go flying out of the pile and then maybe do like a Dickie Murdoch and like roll across the pavement a little bit, like whoop, 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 all the way up the entryway and out the cargo bay.
The whole thing, like the whole segment, they should have had the Benny Hill music going, and then until Sid crashes the car, then they can go right into Sid's Psycho music.
Another thing that was great about that scene is Sid looks enormous all the time, but getting out of that car, he looked like a fucking giant.
Yeah.
I mean, he looks so fucking big.
Yep.
All right. Well, Joseph, do you have any contemporary wrestling news from on and around July 15th, 1996 for us?
Yeah, speaking of people looking giant, the Warrior Saga rumors are continuing this week, although there are no real changes from last week. But the Warrior did state the following in an online message.
With Prodigy.
Probably with Prodigy, yeah. Jim Hellwig says, if resolving my personal issues and protecting the way I choose to believe puts me in the WWF doghouse, as stated on the money-making 1-900 line, then so be it. Bow wow and kiss my ass. Always believe.
Well, I mean, I guess I kind of have to hand it to him for sticking to his principles, as fucked up and convoluted as they are.
Yeah.
Bow wow.
Yeah, bow wow. Kevin Kelly, he debuted on Superstars commentary with Jim Ross.
Nice.
So there's some good news.
Yeah, like Kevin Kelly.
We really enjoyed Sid tonight. We enjoyed his appearance last week as well. However, Sid's house show matches have been even more limited than before due to a neck injury that he suffered last year.
God.
And many of his matches have been 1-minute matches.
Yeah.
Like that one with Owen in Pittsburgh.
Yeah, the one in Pittsburgh was like 41 seconds or something like that.
Not good news, but we'll see what happens.
Hopefully, during his match, he could just stand there and scream. If he could do that, maybe he could win us over.
Yeah, I mean, I think the 6-man tag will help him in this one. But
surely. He could just kind of come in and play the big man. And
yeah. Speaking of Sid, and the car angle that happened, so originally in the show for that week was an angle where Warrior, Shawn Michaels, and Ahmed Johnson make a comeback in the ring against Camp Cornette. So nothing too exciting there. I think what we got was much better.
Yeah.
Some news on some contract situations. The 1-2-3 Kid has been given his release this past week. He is expected to join WCW. Vince McMahon is making an effort to sign a lot of the key guys to 5-year deals to avoid another Hall-Nash situation. And apparently Davey Boy Smith was the most recent to be offered a 5-year deal, although they are still in contract negotiations, so nothing has been signed yet. And that is all this week.
Hopefully they offered TL Hopper a 10-year.
Oh boy.
yeah. I believe that's what they offer Mark Henry, right? Out of the gate. They give him a 10-year deal, I think.
Yeah, they did give him a pretty
yeah, I think I
pretty
remember
lengthy
hearing
deal.
that his deal was a 10-year deal.
Well, I mean, TL Hopper has the same amount of upside as an Olympic strongman, so...
Especially with that hairline.
Yeah. Oh, my God.
What the hell is... I don't know if I've ever seen the bald mullet before.
Yeah.
It's like a curly, like a weird... scraggly looking curly hair on the back too.
Yeah, it would remind you of like a Halloween clown mask or something you would get. I don't know.
Yeah. The fashions and styles change throughout the times, but I can't believe that ever looked good by societal standards.
I don't think it was supposed to look good.
Well, in case our listeners haven't noticed, this is going to be a little bit of a shorter episode because we only had 3 wrestling matches in this episode, each one clocking in at about 12 minutes, give or take, so it took up the bulk of the show, and unfortunately, there wasn't a lot going on in them, not a lot to be said about them. So, for those of you out there that are jonesing and thirsting for more of us, you're gonna have to go back and get it from the archives, because we weren't given that much in this episode. And it's kind of a crime, because this is, as I said earlier, the go home into the next pay-per-view, so hopefully it lives up to the hype.
For me, I'd have to say the worst thing that they did here was, since we're going into the pay-per-view, no show of Goldust, we get that music video for The Undertaker, but no hyping up The Undertaker. I don't know why they're not working on that match at all. It just seems like they've left some stuff on the table here that they could have worked with tonight, but they just didn't.
Yeah,
we could have gotten like a 5-minute video package on Mankind and Jake the Snake Roberts explaining just why the fuck that's happening.
I would do with 5 minutes of Mankind giving Jake the Snake the mandible claw.
Yeah, I mean, we know we're getting the Mild Man versus Stone Cold Steve Austin. Who cares about that?
Yeah.
Because of the Mild Man,
right?
You know, we've already seen it. It was okay, but can they do it again? Highly unlikely, but who knows? And then we already know that the WWF Championship and the Intercontinental Championship are not going to be up for grabs because they're in a stupid 6-man tag. So not a whole lot to be excited about.
That is the most glowing recommendation for listening to an upcoming episode that I've ever heard. And that's where we should end it. That's it, folks. We are done with this one. I want to thank you again for joining us. If you like what we're doing here and want to connect with us, you can email us at WRASSLINRAW. Just add @gmail.com to the end of that to submit questions or comments. Check us out on social media and on every podcast subscription platform. While you're there, don't forget to follow and subscribe to get every episode of Wrasslin Raw coming to you every week. Give us a 5-star review and let your friends know how much cooler they would be if they became Rawheads like you and me. Next week on Wrasslin Raw, we're going to take a look at In Your House 9, the international incident, with matches featuring the Body Donnas, Henry Godwin Solo, and many more. So, for Joe and Ryan, I'm Jason, and this has been Wrasslin Raw.